Then the sound of a distant rumble. Dust rises from barren mountains. May 28, 1998. In the remote Chagai district of Balochistan, a vast, silent stretch of desert and rock, hundreds of miles from the nearest city, the earth shook. Not from an earthquake, from something far more deliberate. That day, Pakistan changed. The world changed. And nothing would ever be quite the same again.
To understand what happened at Chagai, we need to go back. Far back. Since the moment Pakistan was born in 1947, it has faced an existential question. How do you survive as a new nation, surrounded by uncertainty, with a neighbor that is 4 times your size? Wars in 1947, 1965, 1971. That last one was the most painful. The fall of Dhaka, the loss of East Pakistan. For Islamabad, it was a wound that never fully healed. But the real turning point came in May 1974. India detonated its first nuclear device in the Rajasthan desert, codenamed Smiling Buddha. Pakistan's Prime Minister at the time, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, reportedly said, "We will eat grass and leaves for 1,000 years, but we will make the bomb." It wasn't just a statement. It was a national directive. Pakistan's nuclear journey was secretive, dangerous, and at times miraculous. It was built under enormous pressure, from international sanctions, from American warnings, from a world that said, "You cannot do this." The scientific engine of Pakistan's program was the Khan Research Laboratories, built around the genius and controversy of one man, Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan. A metallurgical engineer who had worked in Europe, Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan returned to Pakistan in the 1970s with knowledge and, arguably, classified centrifuge designs that would give Pakistan's uranium enrichment program a critical head start. For over 2 decades, Pakistani scientists, engineers, and military officials worked in secrecy. Buried facilities, coded language, international front companies, all to build what Bhutto had promised. And through the 1980s and 1990s, with shifting international attention, especially during the Soviet-Afghan War, when the US looked the other way, the program matured. By the mid-1990s, the question was no longer, can Pakistan build a bomb? The question was, when would it test one?
The answer came from across the border. On May 11, 1998, just 17 days before Chagai, India conducted a series of 5 nuclear tests at Pokhran in Rajasthan, codenamed Operation Shakti. India's newly elected BJP government under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee announced the tests with pride. India, they declared, was now a nuclear weapons state. The reaction from the international community was swift: condemnation, sanctions. But in Islamabad, the reaction was different. Pakistan's Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif now faced perhaps the most consequential decision in Pakistani history. The pressure was enormous from both sides. The United States, led by President Bill Clinton, called Sharif directly and pleaded, "Do not test." America offered economic incentives, diplomatic guarantees. The message was clear: match India's tests, and Pakistan would face crippling sanctions. But the pressure from Pakistan's military, its scientists, and its own public was even greater. If India had the bomb, openly, could Pakistan afford to stay silent? What followed were 17 of the most intense days in Pakistan's history. Nawaz Sharif has said in interviews that he could not sleep, that he prayed for guidance. Economists warned of financial collapse. The Pakistani rupee was already fragile. Sanctions could devastate the country. But there was another calculation, a strategic one. A Pakistan that stayed silent after India's tests would be seen as militarily inferior. In the logic of nuclear deterrence, silence could be interpreted as weakness, or worse, as an absence of capability. And so, after 17 days of deliberation, Nawaz Sharif gave the order. Test.
The location chosen was the Ras Ko Hills in Chagai district, a remote, geologically stable mountain range in Balochistan, far from population centers. The operation was codenamed Chagai-I. 5 horizontal tunnels had been bored deep into the mountain. The devices, implosion-type fission weapons, were placed at the end of those tunnels. May 28, 1998, 3:16 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. The detonation sequence began. 5 nuclear devices were fired simultaneously. The mountain turned white. Eyewitnesses described the rock face changing color, bleaching to white within seconds, then slowly fading. The official yield of the tests was estimated at approximately 40 kilotons, roughly 3 times the power of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Seismic stations around the world registered the event. There was no hiding it. Pakistan had gone nuclear. The story did not end there. 2 days later, on May 30th, 1998, Pakistan conducted a 6th nuclear test at a different site, the Karran Desert, codenamed Chagai-II. This was a single device, lower yield, but strategically significant. It demonstrated Pakistan's ability to test at multiple locations with different device designs. Together, the 6 tests sent an unmistakable message to the world. Pakistan was not a country with a suspected nuclear capability. Pakistan was a declared nuclear weapons state. The international reaction was immediate and severe. The United States imposed broad economic sanctions on Pakistan under the Glenn Amendment, legislation that mandated sanctions against any country that tested nuclear weapons. Japan, the European Union, and other nations followed. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves were dangerously low. The economy faced serious strain. But something else happened too. Inside Pakistan, the reaction was not fear, it was celebration. Across the country, from Karachi to Peshawar, people came into the streets. Sweets were distributed. People chanted and cheered. May 28th was declared Youm-e-Takbeer, the Day of Greatness. For many Pakistanis, this was not just a military achievement. It was a statement of survival, a declaration that this nation, born in partition, tested in war, dismissed by adversaries, had endured. Behind every weapons test is a story of human effort. Pakistan's nuclear program was built by hundreds of scientists, engineers, and technicians who worked in extraordinary secrecy over decades. Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan became the public face, celebrated as the father of the Islamic bomb, though that phrase was always complicated, and would later become more complicated still. But there were others. Dr. Samar Mubarakmand, who led the team directly responsible for the Chagai tests, is among them. A physicist who had worked on the weapons program for years, Mubarakmand has spoken about the extraordinary pressure of those final days, the uncertainty, the technical challenges, the awareness of what was at stake. These were not men of war. They were scientists, and they carried the weight of a nation on their shoulders. What did Pakistan actually gain from going nuclear? In the language of strategic studies, the answer is nuclear deterrence. The same theory that kept the United States and Soviet Union from direct war for 4 decades, is simple in principle. If the cost of attacking a nuclear-armed state is your own annihilation, you will not attack. For Pakistan, the tests were not about aggression. They were about sending a signal to India and to the world that any conventional military conflict risked escalation to a level that neither side could survive.
Critics argue that nuclear weapons have not resolved the underlying tensions between India and Pakistan, and that is true. The two countries came close to serious conflict again in 1999 during the Kargil War, and again in the years that followed. But the nuclear dimension has also, arguably, kept that conflict from becoming something far worse.
More than 2 decades later, the legacy of Chagai 1998 remains deeply contested. For Pakistan, the nuclear tests represent a moment of strategic parity, the point at which the country secured a deterrent against existential threat. For the international community, Pakistan's nuclear program remains a source of ongoing concern, not least because of what came after. In the early 2000s, revelations emerged that Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan had been involved in proliferating nuclear technology to North Korea, Iran, and Libya. Khan was placed under house arrest. The scandal damaged Pakistan's international standing severely. But the weapons and the program remain. Today, Pakistan is estimated to have a nuclear stockpile of over 100 warheads. It maintains a policy of credible minimum deterrence, enough to deter, not enough to start a new arms race. And Chagai, that bleached white mountain in the Balochistan desert, stands as a permanent reminder of what happened on May 28, 1998. History does not always give us simple lessons. The story of Chagai 1998 is the story of a nation that felt cornered and responded with the most powerful tool humanity has ever created. Whether that was wisdom or folly, necessary or reckless, is a question that scholars, strategists, and ordinary citizens continue to debate. What is not debated is what happened. On that afternoon in the mountains of Balochistan, Pakistan crossed a threshold it could never uncross. The mountain turned white, and the world took notice. If you found this documentary valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to War and Military History. Your support helps us bring more stories like this, complex, documented, and told without shortcuts. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode.